My full name is Cynthia Parks. My dad's name is Alvin Parks Sr. And my mom's name is Julia Ann Parks.
Yeah. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, ma'am. I have one brother, Alvin Parks Jr.
What is the date and place of your birth?
Birth is January the 26th, 1969 in New Albany, Mississippi. I attended Myrtle Attendance Center from first grade to seventh grade, and then I transferred to New Albany Middle School, eighth grade, and graduated from New Albany High School, W. Daniel, in 1987.
So what was your favorite subject?
History.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you like about that?
Mm.
Is there an era that you liked?
Well, I liked all of it. I think it might have been a part of just kind of being nosy, just wanting to know about everything, why this happened, which my mom always said. I was asking people, like, why is this, and who is this? So I just wanting to know.
So what do you do today?
I'm a kindergarten teacher at New Albany Elementary.
Are you married?
No, ma'am.
So no children?
No, ma'am.
When did you start playing sports?
As far as I can remember, I played Little League softball. Probably started around about 8, 9. Played every summer in that. And then when I was Myrtle, I played basketball. Probably about 6th, 7th grade, we played. And then when I came over to New Albany, I started playing basketball. But then I was exposed to track at that time, and I started running track.
Who was your coach at that time?
In New Albany was Coach Brownie Tohill.
And tell us what it was like for you the first time you ran track.
I guess it was different, especially because I was used to, I lived kind of what I call the country, running on dirt roads and on rock roads, and then to have to run on a track was slightly different, but I kind of felt like I had way more speed on the track than I did on the rocks and the dirt road. I guess it was just like a freeing feeling to be able to run that fast and to learn that I had a little speed.
Well, do you remember what your accomplishments were in track, your times and your...
I ran mostly relays. I ran the 200 race, and I think that was my best one. Now, as far as times, I can't remember the times. Just remember the stories that people would say, especially my brother. When I say, okay, I got to go run the 200, he said, was that the race where you come in the curve and your head is leaning like this? And I'm like, yeah. And that's when I pick up my speed. When I come out of that curve, I was picking up speed, looking toward that finish line. And most of the time I made it first to that finish line. But yeah, 200 I think was my favorite. But I also like the relays. The one I hated the most was the 4x4, the mile relay. And once again, my brother, he would always say, is that the one where you run around one time and you catch a cramp? And I'm like, yeah, that's the one.
So your family was real supportive of your sports, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Even playing Little League, at one point I remember my parents talking about that I didn't even want them coming to the games, but they were there every game. I could hear my name back up on the hill because when we played West Schooler Field, they had to sit up on the hill, but I could hear my name being called up there. So I learned to love and accept that my parents were gonna be there, supporting me, and all the way to the end.
Do you remember some names of people you played with in Little League?
Diane Wilbanks, I played Little League with. I played Little League softball with Cynthia Boyd, Cindy Taylor, who has passed on now.
Who was your coach?
The one that I remember the most was, and I can't remember her first name, was Cindy Taylor's mom. And it probably because Cindy's first name was Cynthia and mine was Cynthia also, but they call her Cindy. But she was just so understanding about when we made a mistake, or she would just push us along, try to help us correct ourselves about it, and she really wanted us to have fun in the game. But she was the main one that I remember. My dad, he didn't coach me until I was up in the women's league.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting to. Was your dad? Did he coached you later in your life?
Yes, ma'am. First time I played in the women's league here in New Albany is when he coached me. Him and Matthew Lipsy.
About what year was that?
Probably 1980, 88 maybe, 88, 89 maybe.
And your dad's has a sports history.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a little about that?
I've always heard him talk about sports. Now, I always make the comment, if you lived in the house with my dad, you were gonna know about sports. And that's what we watched on TV. So I knew the game of football better than my brother did, probably because I'm sitting right there with my daddy watching the game. Basketball, whatever team he liked, I like. He liked Pittsburgh, I like Pittsburgh. He liked the Lakers, I like the Lakers. So yeah, we sports family. My mom, she even played softball. But yeah, my dad, he played basketball, he played baseball. Now, I don't think he played football. I don't remember him talking about football. But now he always talked about how quick he was.
And he played for what school?
BF Ford.
Is that where you graduated?
Yes, ma'am. He graduated from there. And he always would say, I pretty much got my talent from him. Most parents don't like to really compare, but between my brother and I, he would always say my brother had more talent in sports, but I had the drive, the want to do it, and the work ethic in playing sports to the best of my ability.
Well, talk a little bit about that. How exactly does that manifest itself in your sports career? Your work ethic and your grit. Give me some examples.
I being the only girl coming up with my brother and my cousin, it was 5 of us, and I was the only girl. So whatever they did, I did. If they played football, I was playing football. If they played basketball, I played. And they pretty much made me tough because I took the licks, and if I fell down, I just got right on back up and played right with them. So, and I think I've taken that, I took that on over into when I played in high school, and even in my adult sports life, that I wanted to get it done, and I wanted to do it the best way that I could. Now, my parents didn't really say, okay, well, you got to do this and you got to do that. But they did let us know that if you're going to play, you got to give it your all and do the best that you can, because you don't want to just be out there in the way. Pretty much, you want to do the best you can, and I've always wanted to do that in sports and in my everyday life and my job.
That carries over, doesn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sports teaches us a lot, doesn't it?
A lot. Which I often make references to my sports life to my students today in teaching, and I often look for hopefully future athletes in my classes. Sometimes I get, I'll be like, okay, maybe we need to get a basketball in here and just let you start bouncing around.
There's probably something to that.
Right, yeah. Yeah. But I've always loved my sports life. And when I played in high school, at one point I did say I wanted to be a coach. But my dad, we almost kind of went back and forth about that. He said, well, I think you need to be a principal, but I'm like, I want to be a coach, But I got close to the principal. I'm a teacher, but and when I played softball in my adult life, the last year or two that I played in Columbus, I said, okay, I'm going to play maybe one more year, and then I'm going to coach the little girls in the league. But I didn't get to do that. I had to come back home. And pretty much my sports life, that's a closed book now.
Well, let's open it up and go back to your high school basketball.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about when you started, who your coach was, and some of the high points of that.
Started Coach Brownie Toehill, actually at middle school, 8th grade. I started with some talented players, Daphne Davis, Marilyn Gibson, Barbara Strickland. I learned a lot from those ladies, and over into 9th grade. I'm not going to say I was not a punching bag, but I took a lot of licks playing against those ladies, but it just made me tough. And when it was my time, that's where that pushing from my parents to do my best and that drive, that grit, I guess you could say, it came through around about the 9th and 10th grade, because I began to play more, was on the court more. So as far as being a talented shooter, not so much, but defense, that was my area. I think that's where I got most of my trophies from, best defensive player. I wasn't scared to go up against the big girls. One that I'll never forget was Cynthia Parks from Houston. Really didn't nobody want to go up against her, but when we played them here in New Albany, that was one of my hardest nights, but I stayed in there with her. I was scrapping, and she was tall, and I was down. I'm only about like 5'6", and she was real tall and solid, but I was in there with her. I guess you can almost compare us to David and Goliath. But I was in there scrapping. I think I kept her to a low game that night, and we didn't win, but I had a good game that night. And my coach, he let us know that next day that Cynthia, she played. I didn't get hurt or anything, but I played hard that night, and I think because I wanted to prove that, nah, she not the only one that can play. You got that grit to play. I got it too. But yeah, I'll never forget that night. Cynthia against Cynthia that night. Yeah.
So you were in the 9th grade.
Yes, ma'am.
So you won Best Defensive Player, and what are some other awards that you've won?
I got my senior year. I was in one of the most valuable players in the Union County tournament. Then I was the captain that year. My senior year, I can't remember. It was with David Foote, Tanya Anding.
What was your record as far as wins? Did you go to the state tournament or?
No, ma'am. I never did make it to the state tournament. Not with the girls' basketball team. I just always followed my brother on that one.
So his team did?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Now, is he older or younger than you?
I'm the oldest. We're just a year apart. But I guess we go back to that.
Yeah.
My daddy said he had the most talent. He was the shooter.
Yeah.
But yeah, he 3 years. He went down state.
Went to the big house.
Big house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
So, after you graduated, did you continue to play basketball in college?
No, ma'am. When I went to Northeast, I played softball there, and I did intramural volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was introduced to volleyball for the first time. And then when I graduated from there, went to Mississippi State. I didn't play any sports then. I was all about the books then. But now I still indulge in sports. I did go to ball games, basketball games.
Still makes your heart race, doesn't
Yes,
it?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Even today, I'm following my Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, talk about your sports as an adult. You were on the women's team. Was that? And you said your mom played.
Yeah, she plays softball. I remember following in behind her when she was going to practice, playing softball.
What team did she play on?
I don't remember the teams. I just kind of vaguely remember some of the places they went and practiced. She didn't play like a lot as I was growing up, and I guess that's because we started playing in the summer league, so she was carrying us to practice more so. But then I remember going to a lot of my dad's softball games when he played.
What were the leagues they were playing in? Was it church league or
the city
league?
City league. I just remember my dad. The one team that I remember the most that he played BT Express, and they played a lot in Shadydale Park here in New Albany.
Was that an all black team?
Yes, ma'am.
So were black teams playing white teams, or were black teams playing black teams?
Mostly that I remember was black teams playing black teams, but now I do remember him talking about like when they would go into tournaments, that's when they would meet the white teams that he would talk about. Now he'll talk about guys that he knew then that played. Now I don't recall seeing a lot of those games when they were in those tournaments, but a lot of the ones that they played here in New Albany, I do remember those. Except when they start playing out here at the fairground, in that league, it would be different. Black and white teams playing against each other.
In looking at sports, what person has had the most influence in your life?
In the sports world, my dad.
Yeah.
My dad. Even now, when anything about sports come up, I know I can go to my dad and we can talk about it. But yeah, And I think that's because I got a lot of that drive and work ethic from him, and I guess you say later on down the line, I did look up to my brother a lot because he was a good player.
What were some of his accomplishments?
Like I said, he was the shooter.
Mm-hmm.
He did have some high scoring games, and to be playing with people like Johnny Payton.
Well, I was going to ask, was he on that Johnny Payton team?
Yeah, that I think it was that last year that Johnny played. He was able to play with them, but then moving on in the years after that with Bobby Blue Bolin and David Foote and Kevin Howard, Tiny, Tim Finley Drake, those teams that went down the state. Those are teams that I wish we could put back together and see them playing now. They played some good ball. Mm-hmm. They really did. And so then that's my brother. Yeah, that's my brother.
Did he play college basketball?
He played at Northeast briefly. He did have a scholarship at Northeast, but then after that, he didn't play anymore after that.
Well, there's a photograph there of your grandmother, am I right?
Yes, ma'am. Juliet Norwood.
And do you know...
Kimmons Norwood.
Can you tell me anything about her sports history?
All I know about it is this right here.
Was that the first time you'd seen that?
Well, no, ma'am. I saw it when during holidays we looked through the photo albums and we came across this picture, and I was like, "Oh, grandmama played basketball," and Mom said, "Yeah," but she never really talked about it. Even if I asked, "Grandmama, you play basketball?" Yeah, but she just never went into detail about her basketball career.
Well, they've got a trophy there, don't they?
Yeah, so evidently they was pretty good.
And she would have gone to Union County Training School?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I guess maybe got a little talent.
I think you got the gene, didn't you?
Yeah. From both sides of the family, because that would be my mom's side.
Yeah.
I pledged Zeta Phi Beta sorority. Spring 91 there. That was really one of my big accomplishments because before that I always said that I wouldn't do something like that. But once I researched it and saw the things that they were doing, I was like, yeah, this is something I want to do. And in which I make reference to that a lot to my students now about the good things that my sorority does.
Talk about some of the good things.
Community service, scholarship. We are about the education of, and I was in the grad chapter also. After I left Mississippi State, I was in the grad chapter in Columbus, Mississippi. But when I came home, I was not a part of the grad chapter down there, and now I'm looking into being in the grad chapter in Tupelo. But I still support my sorority and the things that we do. When I was at Mississippi State, I was the president for like 2 years of my chapter down there. We had low numbers when I became president, but by the time I finished my reign as president, we were like 30 members strong, and we were known.
You'd done some recruitment, hadn't you?
We did a lot of work, so we were known on campus. Like more so than when I first got in there. But yeah, I feel like it's always brought them together. Just you asking that question, I went back to the days that when I was playing, that the gym would be packed, full of people, to see the students playing, and the support that we always got from the crowd, and especially the cheers, especially when Jerry Sherman would get the crowd started with the cheers and everything. And it was just a good feeling to have that support and to know that we had our community behind us. Yeah. And even when the boys would go to state, they followed them. They were there. And even now, I feel like they're still supported. Maybe not as much, but it would be nice for it to return to those days.
Seems like, do you think that because there are more sports opportunities, that it's fragmented in different directions, maybe?
Right. Because when I look at my students now, and even the ones that I've had 3 classes to graduate now, and I would have liked for some of them to play basketball, but a lot of them went in like soccer, cross country, which is related to my track life, but they are going in different directions. And like you said, they have more opportunities, which I always kind of envied that after I graduated, that I really didn't have the chance to play on the softball team in high school, because I don't think we had softball then.
Would you have been a fast pitch softball? They're pretty intense, aren't they?
I know when I watched that, I don't know if I would have been able to handle that. I might could have handled it pretty good, but I didn't have that opportunity. But like now, I'm glad they do have that opportunity now. Even weightlifting.
Yeah.
You know,
look at
that
that
the girls
junior
can
team.
do. Yeah. Now that would probably have been something that I probably would have got into, is the weightlifting. But I'm glad they do have those opportunities now.
Yeah, there's a lot more now.
Yeah. Which that's one reason why my parents wanted us to come to New Albany, to expose us to more, so we would have more opportunities in education and in the sports.
Yeah.
Just work harder. I'm a hard worker. I pretty much that's all I know. I do have a strong work ethic, so much to the point to even now my parents have to say, you need to slow down, you need to rest a little bit. Even my granddaddy, he told me that. He said, you need to slow down a little bit, you're doing a little too much. And but even still, I feel like I can give more, and I want to do more. So I probably would have told myself, yeah, you just need to work harder. Work harder.
So you mentioned that you went to Mississippi State and you had to move back to New Albany. So tell us about what occurred that you had to come back to New Albany.
I became ill. I was sick. I went to doctors to try to find out what was going on, and they never could pinpoint what it was. I was in and out of hospitals for almost like a year and a half, till I ended up at UAB in Alabama when they finally did brain surgery and found out I had neurosarcoidosis, which is the inflammation of body tissues that can affect any part of your body, and it affected my nerves and joints. But once they found out what was wrong, they were able to put me on medicine, and I've been good ever since. But that took me out of my job at the time of teaching in Columbus. But when I came home and recuperated, got back on my feet, I started back in education, teaching kindergarten, here in New Albany, which I taught first grade in Columbus and now teaching kindergarten here. Like I said, I've had 2 or 3 classes to graduate now. Pretty much all of them have graduated from Columbus, but now I've had 2 or 3 classes to graduate from here now. And I'm year 24 in teaching. I made it in 25, so I can retire in 25, but I'll probably be there for a little while longer. I've had a strong work ethic, probably out from childhood up, and I try to instill that in my students now, that you have to do the work. It cannot just be handed to you. You have got to do the work, even if it's in the classroom, on the sports field, basketball, track, whichever one you're doing. You have got to put forth your best effort and work hard to get there, because when you get, as I say to my little babies, when you get in the big world, you're gonna need to be able to do the same thing to make it in life, and that's to work hard and do your best, because it's not gonna be handed to you. It's not. So you got to do what you need to do, and hopefully, if you do go into a sports, that you can take some of those things that you learn there, and they'll carry over into your everyday life in the big world.